On behalf of the commissioners and staff, I would like to welcome you to the August 27th, 2024 meeting of the City of Roseville Public Utilities Commission. This 7-member commission is responsible for studying and advising the City Council regarding all utilities owned or operated by the city, including electric, water, wastewater, and solid waste. The Public Utilities Commission advises the City Council regarding planning rates, public information, cable television franchises, and other matters relating to such enterprises, and may also hear citizen complaints as to operational rates. The Public Utilities Commission also advises the City Council regarding the activities of such joint powers agencies as the city may be a member of or which relate to such utility enterprises. At this time, I'd like to ask that everyone please put your electronic devices on silent. Pam, would you please call the roll?
Yes. Commissioner DeLacy?
Here.
Commissioner DeMarkey?
Here.
Commissioner Knox?
Here.
Commissioner Maish?
Here.
Commissioner Springer? Here. Commissioner Webb has an excused absence, and Chair Bielski.
Here.
Thank you.
Commissioner Knox, would you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, item 4 on the agenda is public comments. This item is for anyone who would like to address the commission on any item that is not on tonight's agenda. When addressing the commission, please state your first and last name for the record.
Hello everyone, my name is Keenan Finney, and I just had a quick question. I've looked at a couple of the reports, and I've seen that the electric distribution system here in Roseville is like 80 or 90% undergrounded. With the remaining 10 or 20%, are there plans to underground that? I was wondering, obviously it's capital intensive. Are there ideas to maybe incorporate that into like the annual roadway resurfacing program, if that's a little bit more cost effective? That's my question. Thank you.
Can I defer to staff on that question?
So I can jump in here. The Brown Act prevents us from actually engaging and answering that question. I do know there are several people from Roseville Electric that can, I'm imagining, Chris, you can get in touch and help him with answers to all of that information. So thank you very much for your comment.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that would like to speak? All right. At this time, may I have a motion for approval of the minutes? Item 5.1, the approval of the July 23rd, 24 meeting minutes.
I'd like to make a motion.
Second.
I'll second.
Okay. All right, it's been moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed or abstentions?
Abstain.
All right. Next on the agenda is requests and presentations. Item 6.1, Environmental Utilities Monthly Update. Report by Environmental Utilities Assistant Director Devin Whittington summarizing the monthly status of environmental utility activities for information.
Good evening, Commissioners. I'm Devin Whittington with Environmental Utilities. We don't have any presentations tonight, so this is kind of it for EU. We'll start off with our waste services utility. We completed the installation of all the cameras on all of our collection vehicles. It's a 360 camera that is capable of confirming service when we service a location, but more importantly, it's to help us with liability. We've had a lot of incidents over the past 3 to 5 years that we've been litigated over, and this will give us video evidence of those incidents when it happens. So that's a very important tool. It took us about a year to get them implemented, and they were installed over the last month. The second item we have is we are re-engaged in the River Arc project. So those of you that don't know what that is, that aims to extract water from the Sacramento River and relieve some of the pressure from the American River system. So we do support this project in the early phases, and we have options as we move down the road to be a greater part of that partnership. The last thing that we have is we're currently in the draft phase of the EIR for our Utility Operations Center. That will be to the far western portion of the city. We expect the draft to be released in the spring of 2025, and then the final draft there in the fall of 2025, and price certification somewhere in 2026. With that, I'll be happy to take any questions.
Do any of the commissioners have questions for staff at this time? Okay, I'm just curious, how do we get the Sacramento water, river water up here?
Yeah, so there's going to be a diversion kind of near where the Vietnam Veteran Bridge is. It's just north of that. The diversion's already, the land's already there. It would have to be pumped back up. And it's a multi-jurisdiction project. So it's not just the city of Roseville, it's the entire region. And the impetus is to take some of the stress off of the American river system. Yeah.
Thank you. Anyone else? Is there anyone from the public who would like to come forward and address the commission on this item? Seeing no one from the public coming forth, thank you, Dan. Devin.
Yeah.
Dan, Devin.
Yeah,
Where'd I get
thank you.
Devin?
Interchangeable.
Speaking of Dan,
Speaking of,
item 6.3 on the agenda, the AMI project wrap-up.
6.2.
I'm sorry, 6.2, the Roseville Electric Monthly Utility Update. That's why I have glasses. A report by Roseville Electric Chief Executive Officer Dan Bean summarizing the monthly status of electric utility activities for information.
Good evening, Commissioners. I'm going to keep this brief since we do have a couple presentations tonight. So a couple things I wanted to highlight. A couple weeks ago, we hosted the North State Builders Industry Association. They have a build leadership group. And so they came to our facility and we gave them a presentation and then a tour of the power plant. And so those are young professionals in the development and building industry. So that was a really good opportunity to meet with them, share some of our challenges, trying to do our job, keep the lights on, keep things affordable. So it was a good group, good time. Another major milestone, a couple days after that, August 15th, we were approved at the California Energy Commission board meeting for our DEBA grant. DEBA is the Distributed Energy Backup Assets or something like that. And it has to do with the peaker units that were put in by the Department of Water Resources a couple years ago at Roseville Energy Park. So by getting that grant and getting that approved by their board, that gets us a little over $1 million to apply to upgrade those units further. And it's the last major hurdle to get ownership of those units. So then they'll be part of our portfolio. So that was a great effort by staff, a lot of negotiations with DWR, a lot of good partnerships with CEC and DWR.
Awesome.
So I'll take any questions. That's all I have right now.
Any commissioners have questions for Dan?
that was a smart move. I think trying to purchase those units,
Yeah,
really slick.
thank you.
All right. Is there anyone from the public who'd like to address this item? Seeing no one, thank you for the updates, Dan.
Thank you.
Okay. Item 6.3 on the agenda is the AMI project wrap-up, presentation by Electric Utility Project Manager Caitlin Ornelas with an overview of the AMI project completion for information.
Perfect. Good evening. My name is Caitlin Ornelas, Project Manager for Roseville Electric. I have a presentation. If you could get that. Perfect. Thank you. If you want to go to the first slide. All right. So it's been about a year or so since I've last visited you guys and really highlighted what the project was, the intent of the project, that we were starting this large initiative for both of our utilities. And so I'm very pleased and excited to be here today to wrap it up and say that we have completed this huge initiative. So I wanted to start with just reminding everybody what this project was, just to give the highlights and some timeline and some general information. So we first start out with just a high-level overview of what the project was, which was really a joint multi-year utility project, installing both electric and water meters throughout the entire city for both our residential and commercial customers. So this really gave us the ability to build in new infrastructure for both of our distribution systems, for our water and our electric distribution systems. In addition, these meters will give us the tools and the ability to send wireless readings and communications, along with important service information to our customer service team and to our different utilities to provide a better quality or a more enhanced quality of service. This will also give us the ability to be more reliable, fewer outages, because we have just information about the infrastructure. We're able to be more proactive than reactive. And one of the other key pieces, I think, is just the usage data that comes from these meters. It's very intuitive. It's very helpful. It does give us the ability to, again, look at that distribution system, but ultimately gives us tools that we can then pass down to our customers so that they can start making choices for their own households as to how they're using their energy and their water. So those are some of the big key pieces and a good overview of what the advanced meter upgrade project started off with. So if we want to go to the next slide. So I wanted to highlight the timeline. I know this has probably been a long time coming. We started back in 2017 with our contracting process with our vendor, with our AMI vendor. And we went through just kind of a series of project phases, from system and integration development to really comprehensive meter and systems testing. Our goal was, when we launched, we wanted to be very transparent, very seamless to both staff as well as our customers, our residential and commercial customers. And so in March of last year, we started with a pilot of about 1,600 location or 1,600 meters. That was very successful. And that gave us the green light to move forward with what we were calling full deployment. And so full deployment was really the entire, starting out in pieces of the city, but making sure that we perform this meter installation or this meter upgrade across the entire city. So we started that in June of 23, and we ended June of 24. So if we want to go to the next slide, we were a couple months ahead of schedule, which was very impressive for the work that was being done. We had a really good team to do that. So what that means is, over that year time, we installed or upgraded just about, or a little over 120,000 residential and commercial water and electric meters and endpoints. So it was a pretty big feat that we accomplished with the teams. And again, these meters, they do send, they use a secure encrypted network to communicate with systems within Roseville, and they do send the important data information, metering events, and service information to our utilities, again, to provide that customer service, to provide that those pieces of information that we need to manage our operations, or the teams to manage their operations. So a couple things on here I wanted to highlight, which was just the benefits and value add of the meter upgrade project. A lot of these we're starting to see. We've just a couple months off of completion, but we are starting to see both operational efficiencies and customer benefits. So for a few operational efficiencies, right out of the gate, we're seeing enhanced billing accuracy. We know that these meters are reading properly and accurately, so we're able to really take that value and be able to bill on it. Less customer questions around usage and reads and billing components, so that has helped us as well. Meter accuracy, we're starting to receive some data analytics to, again, just scratching the surface of how can we use this, where are we going to go, how can we improve our systems, the tools that we have to manage our distribution for both water and electric, but then how can we roll that out to the customers. Increased safety, I think that's a big one. Previously, for years, we had our meter reading team going out to the field every month, going up to people's houses, in backyards, reading meters. That no longer is required unless a customer has chosen to opt out of the program. But just that alone has reduced truck rolls, provided better environmental, or has had some environmental impact because of those trucks no longer being out in the field, but also that safety that gives those field workers. And then on the customer side, a couple of things to highlight. Again, we're not at their location reading their meters, so we're no longer in their yards, things of that nature. Streamlined connection services, which I think is probably one of the biggest improvements for customers right now. So they're able to call into our customer service team if they're ready to move into a home or an apartment within the city of Roseville. We can get them turned on within just seconds instead of going out to the field to take care of that. So it's a lot of efficiencies and improvements for the customers, as well as billing accuracy. Again, to continue to trust that data that's on their billing statements that they receive every month. So again, just to highlight a couple of those things, as I think it is important, and we'll continue to grow and develop those in the coming years. All right, so as we look forward, while the meter upgrade project is complete, the effort doesn't stop there. So just like any project, we are moving into what we call AMI Day 2, which is then it's really using or trying to understand what is the information we're receiving, how can we improve on that, how can we enhance what we've just implemented, again, to not just support or improve internal processes, but also other things that can be offered to our community. And so there'll be some exercises, some workshops in the coming months to really kind of start to identify what are our strategic goals, how can this data help us, how can this service or these tools that we just implemented help take us to that next level, again, both on the utility side as well as the customer side. So we'll be establishing our long-term and some short-term goals and how can we achieve those. So that's on our roadmap, so that's pretty exciting for us. And last but not least, again, we are complete. This project would not be complete without the work of our amazing Roseville team. So I just wanted to highlight for this group all of the different divisions within the city who participated. It was not just me or a small group. We had probably over 100 people who had some piece of this large project. So from both of our utilities, from our information technology teams, to our city council, to our Public Utilities Commission team supporting this effort, our executive team. So I just wanted to highlight all of that work that those teams have performed over the last several years. And that's it, and I'll take any questions.
Before she takes questions, I just want to add, she was brought in partway through the project, and it was floundering, and she did a really good job leading and being the project manager, even though it sounds like, she did a great job. She had a team, but she was the leader.
Thank you.
I do. That really was a good job. But
Thank
do
you.
it in the length of time you did. That's incredible. I know you put on a lot of electric meters, but water meters too? How many did you install?
So water, there was a couple different components to water. So in many cases, the existing water meters stayed. So we changed out about 7,000 water meters. They were old, no longer working, those types of reasons why we changed those out. But what was more important as part of this project is we also equipped those water meters with what was called an endpoint. If you look at your water meter box and there's like a black circle, that's the endpoint. And really all of that is a radio to send the information that the water meter is calculating into the system. So it was kind of a mixed initiative or effort on the water side.
Good job.
What percentage of customers opted out?
We have less than 200.
Wow. Okay.
Couple things. So did they find, on the water side, and I realize I'm asking the electric person, but
No, I support
did they
both.
find leaks? Did they find many people that had, the meter never stopped turning? They had
Yeah,
leaks?
so a couple things. We have caught a number of leaks. I think within a couple weeks of installing the endpoint and really looking at the data, we found a large commercial location had a pretty significant leak. And so they had it's been going on for years and years. And the data was able to show them and to show the water teams like, hey, we really have a problem here. So they're seeing it already. The water utility has already put in a lot of procedures to have some outbound communication to our customers of when they're noticing leaks. We're looking at it daily. They are getting notified if they're seeing water consistently leaking over a certain amount of time, and they're able to be more proactive so that the customers can start looking into the problem, or we can also, help them look at that before it just goes on and their bills keep going up. So they are seeing it, and they're getting a lot of positive feedback already.
Good. Is there going to be a web portal where customers are going to be able to see their data?
Yes. So we're working through that piece. That was the next, one of the next pieces to, I would say, this project or post this project. So it's pretty common for utilities to implement the infrastructure and then do the portal next. So that is next on the agenda on the roadmap. So staff has already started looking and evaluating what that would take and the options for that.
You mentioned it's time-based, so do you have the ability to look at nighttime usage, middle of the night when people shouldn't be using water? Probably wouldn't be, but you're getting weird signals that maybe there's a leak?
The leaks run based off time. So if there is a leak at night, it will catch it. Based off of kind of the requirements that are put in. But from a water perspective, the water meters register or send data, or we capture data on an hourly basis. So it looks at that type of time span and does a lot of calculations. So it could be
So that could help residents as well as...
Oh, that's a huge aspect of it. So as soon as we can get that portal in, they'll be able to start seeing their usage or their consumption and say, oh, something's not right. So
Just following up on that, because I believe for irrigation, we're supposed to water only between 8 in the evening and 8 in the morning. So that would be a useful tool to see the spike in water usage at that time.
Yep.
Other question, what happened to the meter readers? Where did they all go? Or did they find jobs elsewhere? Or did they?
So we had some of our meter readers were temporary staff. So they were on assignment for the project. Some of the other meter readers have found other positions within the city as well as within the utility. So, which is great.
How many meter readers are we talking about?
Just
11.
11. Thank you.
Okay.
I was going to say less than 10, so 11.
If residents want to call to have their system tested, who do they call to check for leaks?
Oh, a lot of times customers can call into our customer care team or our customer service team. They will direct them over to the water customer service, or there's a number for our customer service team out of the water utility, and they will help facilitate those requests. So,
Any other questions from commissioners? Okay. Is there any member of the public who'd like to address this item? Okay, seeing no one. Thank you very much.
Thank you so
Caitlin,
much.
And
Good job.
thank you. Okay, next item is 6.4, the Roseville Electric Duck Curve, a presentation by Power Supply and Portfolio Administrator Petra Wallace with an overview of the electric duck curve for information.
Yes, good evening, commissioners. My name is Petra Wallace. I'm the Power Supply and Portfolio Administrator for the Electric Department. And thank you for joining us for today. This presentation, it's a follow-up to one of the previous commission updates where we discussed some key market challenges. So today we are going to dive deeper into one specific issue that was requested, which is called the duck curve. In this presentation, we will review and illustrate the duck curve. We will understand hopefully the duck curve impact on the California Independent System Operator and the impact on Roseville Electric Utility and the utility's future strategies based on this duck curve. On the next slide, we will talk just a little background on the different balancing areas in California. California's electricity grid is managed through several balancing areas, each responsible for maintaining the balance between electricity supply and demand within the regions. So the California Independent System Operator, or the California ISO, represents about 80% of the state's demand. The Balancing Authority of Northern California, or BANG, manages approximately 8% of the state demands. And some of the bank members are SMUD or neighboring utility, Roseville, Redding, Modesto, Shasta Lake. And just to give you guys a concept, Roseville, it's about 7% of bank's load. So just to show that everything in California standards. So I would like to highlight some milestones from California's green energy policies, specifically SB 100 or Senate Bill 100 and Senate Bill 1020, which aim to significantly reduce our carbon footprint and transition to renewable energy sources. Starting with SB 100, by 2020, California set a goal for 33% of retail electricity sales to come from renewable sources. By 2025, this was increased to 44%. By 2028, it is 52%, and by 2030, it should be 60%. And 2030 on, it will stay at 60% as of current regulatory requirements and legislation. Moving on to SB 1020, by 2035, the policy targets having 90% of our electricity from eligible renewable and zero carbon resources, and by 2040, this will rise to 95%, and by 2045, it should be 100% coming from renewable or carbon-free resources. So next slide, we will discuss the duck curve and what it is. This concept was introduced by the California ISO in 2016. The duck curve illustrates how renewable energy impacts electricity load throughout the day. Specifically, it shows the net load, which is the total electricity demand minus the amount generated by renewable resources like solar power or wind. Solar generation has the most significant effect on this curve. As a result, the net load pattern evolves in a shape resembling a duck. This daily variation in net load creates what we call the duck curve. Understanding this curve helps us manage the balance between energy supply and demand more effectively, especially as renewable energy sources become more prevalent. Now, let's explore the challenges associated with the duck curve. Ramp down and up requirements. As we transition from morning to midday and afternoon to evening, the demand for electricity drops or spikes quickly. This requires rapid adjustment from other generation resources to balance the grid. This also brings up the price volatility. The imbalance between supply and demand can cause significant fluctuations in electricity prices, impacting both utilities and customers. The next slide, we will talk about the CAISO duck curve in 2019 and the impact on electricity prices. The average hour electricity price was around $41 per megawatt hour. During the duck belly period, when the net load was about 13,000 gigawatts, prices dropped to approximately $25 per megawatt hour. Solar is the largest contributor at this time, so as you guys can see on the chart. In contrast, during the net peak period, average daily demand peaks at around 26,000 gigawatt. Prices surged about $65 per megawatt hour. This happens as solar generation fades and demand rises, creating a significant strain on the grid. These fluctuations highlight how the duck curve affects electricity pricing and underscores the challenges of balancing supply and demand with high levels of renewable energy. On the next slide, we're going to take a look at the duck curve in 2023 as a comparison. So the average hourly electricity price was about $65 per megawatt hour. And during the duck belly period, that fell to about $35 per megawatt hour. Conversely, during the next peak load period, when demand peaks to about 24,000 gigawatt hours, prices rise significantly to around $110 per megawatt hour. This spike occurs as solar generation decreases and demand increases, stressing the grid. So you guys can see the duck shape. In the next slide, we are comparing the 2019 and the 2023 changes as a summary. So the average electricity price between this time period increased about 58%. Looking at the duck belly period, we saw a 42% drop in net load, but prices actually went up by 40%. During the net peak period, the net load only decreased by 5%, but prices increased by 144%. I would also like to note that over this period, so between 2019 and 2023, the natural gas prices also went from about $4 to $8. So it's, there was a lot of market changes. So natural gas continues to influence prices just as increasing renewables impact the prices. On the next slide, we'll talk a little bit about negative pricing. That was one of the questions that was brought to our attention. So annually between 3.2% and 6.5% of hours experience negative electricity prices in California. This phenomenon can be influenced by factors like high hydroelectric generation, which can lead to seasonal surplus power from must-fill hydro and lots of solar, and low loads due to moderate spring temperature. Next slide, we can take a look at the negative pricing in the future. So looking ahead, addressing the California ISO's negative pricing will require a strategic approach. Integrating energy storage solutions such as batteries alongside renewable sources, especially solar, will be crucial. By increasing storage capacity, we can better manage excess generation and reduce the frequency of negative pricing. Additionally, storage will provide more reliable and predictable output from solar generation, ensuring a more stable and efficient energy system. There was also a question asked about curtailment in this time period, so I wanted to make sure that I mentioned that in 2023, as a reference, about 2,800 gigawatt hours of renewables were curtailed, which is about 1.4% of generation that was generated in the California ISO. And it is about 4.1% of renewable energy that was curtailed because of negative pricing. I think that was one of the questions that you mentioned. On the next slide, let's explore the duck curve effect on Roseville between 2019 and 2023. As I mentioned earlier, Roseville, it's not in the California ISO. We are in the Balancing Authority of Northern California, so we have different effects and different kind of operations than if it would be in the California ISO. So Roseville operates one utility-scale solar project, a 1 megawatt community solar installation. However, the most notable impact on our duck curve comes from customer-installed behind-the-meter solar system. Despite these changes, we haven't seen a significant shift in peak loads. Notably, our duck belly load has only dropped by 5% during this period, compared to what we have seen in the California ISO. On the next slide, we will take a look at how Roseville's load profile has evolved from 2019 to 2023 in relation to the duck curve. During this period, Roseville saw a 12.4% increase in the number of customers, growing from about 60,000 to 68,000, Again, this is the time period of 2019 to 2023. There was also a significant rise in solar customers, which increased by 128%. We went from about 4,700 solar customers in 2019 to over 10,000 in 2023. Despite these changes, the overall impact on Roseville's load profile has been relatively modest, as you can see on the graph. On the next slide, we can take a look at a project that Roseville is currently evaluating. We are looking into developing a solar local project, either within Bank region or within City of Roseville territory. Roseville is evaluating the impact of integrating a 75 megawatts of local solar project on our system and the impact of Roseville duck skirt. We can take a look at this chart. With this addition, Roseville estimates that our duck belly load will decrease by about 30%, and our net peak load will drop by 2%. However, it's important to note that we are evaluating the option of pairing this solar capacity with battery storage. We expect the actual impact might be somewhat less than these estimates due to the added benefits of storage in managing supply and demand. So impact on future strategies. When considering our future strategies, several key factors will influence the location of our generating resources. Investment in generating resources, we are usually considering several key factors that will influence the location and the type of generation resources. To address these challenges, we need to evaluate energy storage, which would include investing in storage solution, where we can capture excess solar when it's generating and where we could see possibly negative prices, and then provide operational system benefits like fast ramping up and down to complement our thermal generations. We would also evaluate flexible fuel generation, having thermal units capable of clean fuels like hydrogen. So we are looking at some of those options. And then demand response, implementing strategies to manage consumption during peak periods, reducing stress on the grid. And that ties into the AMI project that Caitlin just talked about, where we can eventually use pricing to make sure that customers use electricity when it's most beneficial to them or most cost effective to them. So going forward, Roseville will focus on sites within the Bank region and explore joint development opportunities with partner utilities. In conclusion, understanding the duck curve is crucial for shaping Roseville's future strategies. We are constantly assessing Roseville's current investments and defining areas where we can enhance our capacity to handle these challenges. I'm happy to answer any questions you may have left, but hopefully I addressed most of them.
Questions?
Well, I have a number of comments and questions, and try to keep them somewhat organized. But could we get the duck curve back up, the slide with the duck curve? There we go. So when I was with PCWA, the Middle Fork project generates 140 megawatts, and so we were dealing with this and so I was really curious to see how Roseville deals with it, and I was so pleased to see that you don't have to deal with it. It's almost a non-existent problem within Roseville, and kudos to staff and for the generations that got us to where we are today, that we don't have that problem. Anyway, but that evening ramp when the sun goes down, if you follow the line where it turns and goes almost vertical, the amount of generation being lost minute to minute due to the sun going down and all the solar we have in the system dropping out, that has to be replaced in order to maintain the balance between supply and demand minute to minute in the system, is quite a feat that the ISO has to accomplish every day. And they've come up short a couple times. We've had rolling blackouts in their system or brownouts, because they didn't have enough. And this, in my mind, was a problem that was created by building too much solar into the system. They actually, as the used to be that the combined cycle plants would run like ours runs with a stable pricing for all day long. All of a sudden, the price during the middle of the day, because of the solar, dropped, and several merchant generators couldn't stand the pressure and went out of business in California. And as the ISO saw the number of facilities available to meet that afternoon ramp drop off, they started going into a panic anyway. And so now California, I guess not Roseville, but in Rockland, spent billions of dollars building solar, and now we're going to spend many times that building batteries. So do we have any idea what the cost of batteries is as comparison to, our generation?
We are evaluating the prices because there's a lot of different battery strategies or different batteries, like you can have a 4-hour or shorter. There's different types, so we are evaluating all that. But just to address the question that you had, the California ISO implemented the energy imbalance market. That I think there was a presentation earlier, I think at some point, where helps address the duck curve. So where somebody has excess generation, they can bring it in. So there's a territory where we all work together in real time to balance each other out and address that duck curve.
Berkshire Hathaway owns the stuff to the north of California and in Nevada and in Arizona. And so they were getting paid to take excess solar generation in the middle of the day to keep the prices from going negative. Anyway, good job, Berkshire Hathaway. And that's the energy imbalance market you're talking about. Anyway, I guess it's a pet peeve of mine that solar people get paid more for their generation than it's actually worth on the market. And because when they're generating, everybody's generating, and the prices are low.
Sure.
And when they get the average cost of energy for producing in the middle of the day, that's quite a benefit that we're giving to those customers. And so that was the reason for my no vote on raising the amount of money that people get reimbursed for their excess generation. Anyway, so I thought it was interesting, and it goes to explaining why our friends and neighbors who live in Rockland and Lincoln are paying twice as much for electricity, because they've gone through this cycle of building redundant facilities and then having to pay for them and then causing a problem and then having to build more redundant facilities in order to solve the problem created by building generation. Whereas Roseville, because we've got so much hydro, we didn't have to, bank, all the members of bank are all in WAPA, right? And so we've got a lot of hydro, and so we didn't have to build all of this in order to comply with the SB 100 requirements to increase our renewable portfolio, because we already had so much renewable generation. So anyway, I thought everybody would be interested to know that.
Anybody?
Yeah.
If I got anything of that wrong, please tell me.
Oh, good.
You've got a heck of a challenge ahead of you. Roseville does. The whole state does. In order to get rid of natural gas by 1945, that's almost pie in the sky.
Yeah.
I don't know how it's going to happen. It's major unless you come up a whole new way to produce a tremendous amount of hydrogen or other means to get rid of fossil fuels. I don't see it happening, but state mandates it, so I guess we're going to find a way.
One day at a time. We are working on it, and we are facing the same challenges as the rest of the state. So we will try to work together with other utilities to come up with solutions that are cost efficient.
Hopefully.
and effective.
Maybe I can make a quick comment. I feel maybe the address item. So with regard to the comment on natural gas and the environmental goals and the state's carbon-free goals going forward, and Dan mentioned this earlier, obviously we've put ourselves on a path and are about to take ownership of 2 peaking plants that are located at the Roseville Energy Park. We obviously operate and own Roseville Energy Park. We also have another facility in Placer County that's directly connected to our system, Roseville Power Plant. So I just want to make a comment that, we see with regard to the environmental goals, they are lofty goals. I think it's fair to say we've seen impacts on the operation of the grid reliability from, I think, very aggressive goals set by our legislature and regulatory agencies. But I think we see natural gas as part of the foreseeable future for some time. And so that really, I think, gets to the foundation of some of the recommendations we've taken to the commission and the council about investments in natural gas, and the type of units that we are talking about, that we're requiring and we're investing in, are really to help us with some of these integration issues, the variability with renewables. Renewables will be part of the future. It will be an increased part of our portfolio going forward. So I want to make that clear. We will strive to meet the goals that the state sets for us and other utilities. But natural gas, we think, is not going anywhere anytime soon. And if you talk to some of the regulators that we work closely with, I think they'll say the same thing. And so for us, to your point about it being challenging, we're really making sure that we're equipping the utility with the resources that we think will be necessary for the future, recognizing we will have a future of renewable energy, solar, battery storage, wind, other technologies that yet haven't gotten to market scale. But our investments and future with our natural gas fleet, I think, will be important going forward. Things may look and operate differently than they do today going forward and in the future, but despite what has been challenges in the ISO and how the grid's operated, we'll be looking at battery storage, as Petra said. We'll be making recommendations to enter into renewable contracts. But we think our natural gas fleet, the way that we've invested in it and the things we're going to do in the future, are going to help us better manage that duck curve that the commissioner mentioned and the visual of the duck there illustrated. So our goal is to get in front of it, and I don't think we'll be walking away from the gas fleet anytime soon as a result of that.
Plus, natural gas can also be a feedstock
Right.
for producing other types of fuels that are considered acceptable.
Yeah, I think it's a good presentation. I think we got some great questions from the commission on this before, and just a lot of moving parts on this, right? And despite what I think are generally accurate trends that I think has been mentioned here, there are a lot of other complicating factors. It's not always just one thing, right? As we talk about impacts on the grid, it's load levels, it's transmission issues, it's integration of renewables, it's electric vehicles, electrification, and even market forces and things that happen in real time on the grid that affect that volatility of pricing and access to resources. And so one of the things that we strive to do here at Roseville is balance. We got what we call a diverse portfolio, both in resource type, but also in geographic location. And that's all geared to help manage what we still see. I think the future will be challenging for the electric utility industry in this sector, but the investments we're making today and the RPEAK units, I think, are a good example of that. We see these units as useful going forward as we will, and I'll just say, we will be bringing new renewables and technologies on board. That's the future of the utility, but I think we're cautious about unloading the importance of the gas fleet we have, and it will change how it'll change how we use it going forward, but we see it as very important.
Well said.
Well, and let me just add that I think that Roseville has done an absolutely superb job of maintaining reliability. The ISO is in danger of putting California almost into a third world country type of situation, and Roseville doesn't have that problem. And so my compliments again to staff for for what Roseville Utility is doing.
Amen. Yeah.
So I have a few detailed questions, as always. One of the slides showed windmills. Do we have any wind generation, or is it very minuscule?
We contracted for some winds, so you can see that on our power source disclosure, that it's on our website. So it was contracted. The contract is up at the end of this calendar year, so that was a 10-year contract. There was an outside of the state generation where we just received the renewable energy credit for. So we didn't bring them that generation to load. We liquidated the electricity, or we sold the electricity, and then we just paid for the renewable energy credit portion of that wind generation.
Okay, and then you mentioned another solar farm or solar plant. Where? I know SMUD's got something going on the Aerojet site. I believe there's a private company that's developing something a little bit more up the hill towards Folsom. Are those options? Could we have a private? I mean, would we go with a private, or would we buy our solar from SMUD, or how would we do that? So I'm trying to think where we have anything left here to put, a solar farm.
I can answer that. There's a number of options, quite frankly, where solar is being developed here locally. So the SMUD's developing a pretty large project here in Placer County, west of Roseville, northwest of Roseville, called Country Acres. It's a really large project, 344 megawatts, I believe. And so we're not part of that one. That one has been, I think we've been associated with it in some of the media coverage over the last year plus, but we are not part of that project. We did evaluate participation with SMUD along the way, and for a number of reasons decided it wasn't going to fit for us at this time. We did late last year issue a solicitation for proposals to provide renewable resources for the utility here, serve the community. We did receive a number of proposals, and one of those that we're currently in a letter of intent with is for a project to be developed here in a 75 megawatt project that Petra mentioned, to be developed here in Placer County, north of what has been more commonly known as the Placer 1 development. It is really just a mile and a half away from our Roseville Power Plant number 2, which gives us a direct connection to our peaking facility and our distribution system. So to answer your question, what are we looking at? That's really front and center for us right now. That one, pricing looks good, proposal looks good. It addresses some of the concerns that Commissioner Maish had mentioned about we're not delivering it from the ISO. We're not going to be subject to the volatility of the pricing and the deliverability. Having it local meaning directly connected to our distribution system, and then directly connected to the system where we have peaking facilities and fast ramping new units that can help regulate that, as well as a battery option. We think that is something that's favorable for us. And unlike a lot of renewable projects that are simply paper credits to meet objectives, this has the ability to actually serve load here in community, or serve our customers here in Roseville, and we can manage that. So maybe directly answering your question, that is really one of the ones that we're looking at front and center, and that's favorable for all the reasons I mentioned. And then we're also looking at more compliance type solar projects that are in the ISO. Under the right circumstances, they can be favorable for us now. But I would say, and our council has been aware of this as well, the development here locally that we're working with a partner on that bid into our request for proposals at this point looks very favorable. A lot of work to be done still, but that's one that we see as a viable option because of where it's located, how it connects to our system, and how our existing resource fleet, including our new peakers, will complement the operations of that facility. So all geared to dampen that volatility in terms of deliverability and the volatility that the market can have in pricing if we can keep it close to our system.
Thank you. Any other commissioners? All right. Thank you, Petra, and thank you, staff. That was a wonderful, very informative presentation.
Thank you for asking the questions and asking
You're
for
welcome.
materials.
Let's do public comment on that one before they all walk away.
All right. Oh, I'm sorry. Was there any member of the public that wanted to address this agenda item? Okay, seeing no one. Next item, board member commissioner staff reports. Does anyone on the commission have a suggestion for a future agenda item, or are there any staff reports? Not seeing any. Okay. Right. I believe that's it. May I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? No. Right, the meeting's adjourned. Thank you all very much.